This week in Arsenal, the Gunners get sweet revenge on West Ham. Arteta finally trusts the youth, so we can finally stop having that conversation, right? Right? Tomiyasu and White are reportedly set to sign contract extensions, and a trip to Burnley awaits. Let's get into it. Welcome in to This Week in Arsenal, episode 46. As always, I am Sham. You can follow me on Twitter at Shamsdale. And with me, as ever, is my partner in crime, the one, the only Sash, who you can follow on Twitter at LT Arsenal. Sash, happy Valentine's Day, first of all. And how's everything going?
Yeah, it's going good. I think after the week that we just had, you know, winning 6-0 against those loud lot who also are in London, it was, I think, a fantastic performance. And I think when Arsenal win big during the weekend, it just sets the tone for the rest of the week. We also had the same conversation last week at this time after we beat Liverpool with our good friend Shidi. But yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. Last few days have been calm, composed, tranquil. And yeah, I think we should continue our approach to a Sham of watching football in a way just to enjoy it and not to, let it dictate your mood. Because I'm being quite hypocritical here when I say that when Arsenal win, I'm happy, but you can't be also upset when Arsenal lose and let it affect your full week. So I think, yes, there has to be some balance, but it's always better to win than lose. And yeah, sometimes an Arsenal win can help you get through a tough week. So yeah, it's going on so far for me quite well. And how about for you? What are you up to this week?
Yeah, it's been good. I've let myself be very smug over the last few days. It was Super Bowl Sunday as well when we played West Ham, and I think it was after the hate watching failures that I suffered on Saturday. I think Sunday was really nice because we got, like I said, just the sweetest form of revenge against West Ham. I think if you could write a script for the perfect comeuppance, I don't think you could have written it better than that, really. And in addition to that, I got what I wanted in the Super Bowl, right? Which is the Chiefs winning, and I wanted the Chiefs to win for a very
Taylor
selfish
Swift.
reason.
You're a
Well,
Taylor Swift fan.
I mean, I don't mind Taylor Swift. I there are it's funny because like there's this whole thing where people are getting upset with her being at the game. It's whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't mind Taylor Swift. I will say like she is a hit making machine. All her songs are bops. So I'm not like her biggest fan or anything, but I don't really have any hate towards her. But
You were
um
singing You Belong With Me just before the podcast started, right?
I'm more of a shake it off kind of man,
Take it
but
off.
that's an excellent song. That is an excellent song
Yeah.
objectively.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was so I'm a very petty man when it comes to sports outside of football and even within football. And I am going to be marrying into a Boston sports supporting family very soon. And so I wanted Patrick Mahomes to win so that this next Christmas when I am up in Boston, I can just start saying, Patrick Mahomes, 28 years old, 3 Super Bowls. He might be better than Brady. I turned to my fiance as soon as the Chiefs won, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Congrats! I'm ruining Christmas now." So, so yeah, I'm doing good, but as I think to kind of stabilize things, right? Because we can't be happy forever. So I'm gonna bring the mood down immediately, and I'm gonna ask you, Sash, right off the bat, Saka, Foden, which one's world class? You can't pick both.
So rather than saying which one's world class, I would rather just say which one is the better player because I don't see the thing. I'll tell you the difference between me and some of the Man City fans. I'm not going to put down another player just to hype up my player. I admit Foden is a phenomenal talent. Watching him is fantastic. He can play in so many different positions. He's won everything at a young age. Fair play to him. Fantastic player. However, there is a player at Arsenal who is better than him, and he goes by the name of Bukayo Saka. Okay, and people are going to say, based on what are you saying this? And then I will also ask these same people, based on what are you saying Foden is a better talent than Saka? Like, based on what? What is your criterion of defining talent? If you're going to say Saka is better than Foden, then I think you're just biased because Saka is better talent than Foden. That's my Wi-Fi
Yeah, I think
doing
you cut
my
out there a little
Wi-Fi
bit.
things. Yeah, but yeah, my point was, how do you define talent? Do you call Adama Traore a good talent just because he dribbles past players? Do you call Alan Saint Maximin an amazing talent because he dribbles past players and has good technique? Do you call Lucas Podolski the best player in the history of the sport because he could strike a ball? Like, really, what is talent? What is ability? Like, what does Saka do that Foden also can do? Like, Saka is so good on his weaker right foot. I don't see Foden being as good on his weaker foot than Saka is, for example. And I think Saka's way better 1v1 dribbler as well than Foden. And on the right hand side, there's only one guy I would have in my team. Foden, I think, has good playmaking qualities. But all in all, if you just look at it objectively, Bukayo Saka is the better player. And all this thing about talent, who's the better talent, come on, man, I don't buy that at all. Like, how do you define talent? It just seems to me like an insecure bunch of fans. Some of them have admitted, by the way, that Saka is a better player than Phil Foden, but they
Mhm.
still have to end the sentence with, but I think Foden has the higher ceiling, So, yeah, it's like crazy. And as we have a comment here from Nkem Frank, and he says, "You're right. There's a reason why Southgate always picked the star boy. It's a fact because I think Saka is actually a specialized player. Ford is still trying to
Mhm.
say what is his best position. Is he a left winger? Is he a right winger? Is he a midfielder? Like Saka, this is why he plays, and he's also versatile enough to play in other positions if you want him to. So, I mean, at this moment in time, Saka's better. But again, I'm not going to dismiss Foden as a player because we are class in a football club. We have class in even our opinions. So, how do you
Yeah.
see it, Sham? There's huge debate on the timeline, and I was enraged by a few tweets. But what do you make of this?
Yeah, I got pretty pissed off by the Rio Ferdinand um, comment that was doing the rounds last night, where he basically said, um, yeah, they're really good, but Foden plays for City, so he's world class, and Saka isn't. I mean, just this is the guy who, when Zinchenko started trying to explain pretty simple tactics to him, his brain logged off. Um, yeah, I'll put it to you like this. I think they're both world class, to be quite honest, right? Um, I think Foden is an immensely talented player. Although I will also say, I think 99% of people, and I'm not going to sit here and be in an ivory tower and say that I'm in the 1% here, but I think 99% of people don't really have an accurate definition of what talent is, or when they talk about talent, they talk about aesthetics that they're looking for in players on a subjective level, if that makes sense. I don't, when people say talent, a lot of the time they're just saying, "Oh yeah, I like how he runs with the ball." And he does cool tricks every once in a while. I think that's what a lot of people mean by
Aesthetics.
talent. Yeah, 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 yeah. Like everyone's so obsessed with aesthetics these days, and it's just that's not what really what talent is. So I think it's really funny when people are like, "Oh, I don't care about the stats. Use your eyes." That I mean, I think stats are better at quantifying talent and output and ability than most people's eyes are, right? That's the whole reason that we have stats, so that people's subjectivity doesn't really play into kind of overall analysis of a player. But you know, I just don't like this dismissal of Saka that I see a lot of the time, because he came along at a time when Arsenal were not the Champions League and they were finishing eighth and they were struggling. And now that he is a big part, if not the biggest part, of getting us back to that level that we used to be at, people are writing him off because Foden maybe to put it a little unkindly, got to come along with the likes of, David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne and Erling Haaland and Bernardo Silva. Uh, Foden doesn't have to do it all on his own, and Saka gets double, triple teamed every week, and is still producing since the beginning of last season, 51 goals and assists in all competitions compared to Foden's 48. Right, so I'm not going to sit here. I'm not even going to say that I think Saka is, out and out a better player than Foden. Right, I personally think that. But if you want to say that you like Foden a little better, that's fine. As long as people both categorize them as elite talents, that's where I think the conversation needs to be. Um, so yeah, I guess the way I'd summarize it is I would love to have Foden at Arsenal, but I wouldn't take him over Saka at Arsenal. So that's where I'll leave it. But it's just one of those things where I feel like when there's a bit of a lull, there's some weird conversation that people have, and I think so much of football discourse now kind of comes down to pitting two players against each other and trying to figure out who's better. It's just a lot of the time I don't really think that's a very productive way to talk about the game. So yeah, we'll see if there's ever a shift away from that, but we keep moving. So we are again coming to you after a massive, massive win against West Ham, where we traveled to the London Stadium. We took them on, and this is the third time that we'd played West Ham this season, and we had lost the first two times. I think Sash is having some technical difficulties. We'd lost the first two times, right? And they were really disappointing results. And I think one of them we played really well. The loss in the Premier League at home, we played really well, but we just we made mistakes in both boxes and we paid for it. And West Ham's low block was enough to see them through. And then in the Carabao Cup or the EFL Cup, it's always changing names, but in the League Cup we went up against them, and I just don't think we put out a team good enough to really get the win on the day. Didn't really take the competition all that seriously, which for the EFL Cup I have a little bit of sympathy for. But we traveled to the London Stadium, and I think this was a game that we absolutely could not lose for two reasons. Number one, we were coming off that big, big win against Liverpool, and I think so many times in our recent past, we have seen Arsenal win these big games and then fail to follow up on it, right? And it makes it look like more of a flash in the pan than, actual consistent ability to deliver. So, I personally needed to see us get that win and follow up that victory against Liverpool with another away victory and keep on going in the title race. But in addition to that, I also wanted just to finally shut up West Ham fans and get that win that we needed, and just kind of end the whole West Ham have Arsenal's number, and they sold Declan Rice to Arsenal and West Ham got better and Arsenal got worse, yada yada. So I think it was absolutely imperative that we got that handled, that we went and beat West Ham, and that we did it convincingly, and that we showed them that we know how to take care of them. We know how to you know beat them in such an emphatic way as to show that we have improved, and really just send a message to West Ham fans, to Arsenal fans, to the league, that no one has our number. So I think Sash is still having some. Are you back?
Yeah, I'm here. It was so funny. Like the internet was horrible, and when you were speaking before, it was like as though a guitar was playing. It was just like strumming, and it was like you were singing a song about why like Foden and Saka were being
I
compared.
I
I
have
almost
been I
started
have been told.
crying.
I have been told that my voice is like music, but yeah, like I said, for those reasons, we really had to go and win that game, right? And really just kind of plant that flag in the ground and show, especially West Ham, but the league, that Declan Rice has made us a better player, that he is an elite player, and that we will not be beaten 3 times in a row by the same team. So, um, I first just want to turn to the performance of Declan Rice, because I think this kind of is that's the guy who the spotlight was on in this match. And so what I thought was really curious was, he finished the match with 2 assists and a goal, right? An absolute thunder bastard to make it 6-0. But I want to focus in on the 2 assists, because we've seen now that Rice has kind of become a set piece specialist for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he has 3 assists in the last few games, 2 from corners and 1 from a free kick, that have all resulted in headed goals. So, Sash, I just want to ask, what do you make of, Rice's conversion here to being a dead ball specialist for us?
I think nobody saw this arc of Declan Rice coming. And this is the player that many fans say he lacks technical quality. Like, what world are you living in? Like, yeah, I agree. He might not be as vertical as Thomas Partey is all the time. But how many midfielders are as vertical as Thomas Partey in the world? Like, there's not many who play that way. Like, he's very unique, Thomas Partey. Also unique in the way he gets injured, but that's a different story. But Declan Rice, for me, incredible technical quality. And initially, I was wondering, like, why the hell is he taking set pieces? Like, against United, this guy scored a winner from a corner kick. Of course, it was not a header, but he still scored a winner. Against Sheffield, was it Sheffield? No, it was against Luton away from home. He scored the winner. It was not exactly a set piece, but it still was a great header that he scored to win us the match. I was wondering, like, why is he taking set pieces? Like, he could actually offer a lot of value in the box, but I was so wrong. Actually, as a set piece player, he's been so good. It's actually been quite a while since Arsenal, I think, had a really good player on set pieces. Like, I think Martinelli and Saka, they've done a good job, don't get me wrong. But like a proper set piece guy who takes it, something like maybe what someone like Cazorla used to be for us back in the day.
Mhm.
Even Arteta, when he signed for us in those 2 seasons. So we always, I think, lacked like a dead ball specialist who could like take good like corners and free kicks. And I think Declan Rice, the quality of his deliveries have been really amazing. And yeah, credit to him, because look, people will make fun of it. People will say, "Ah, it's a set piece goal," but come on, like it's goal is a goal. And I think Arsenal, they needed a set piece goal to open the scoring. It was very frustrating the first 30 minutes. We played very well, but to break the deadlock, I think you need a bit of, wouldn't say luck, but you need a bit of how do I put this? You need to like score a goal that may not be the best goal visually speaking. It could be a goal like from a dead ball situation. You just need the goal basically. And Arsenal found a way to get that. And Declan Rice played an immense role in doing that. And yeah, I just wanted to also ask you, Sham, in addition to Declan Rice's evolving set pieces, what you make of Nicolas Iowa's performance at Arsenal. Because if Arsenal win the league this season, this guy needs a statue, doesn't he? Because the number of offensive goals we've scored, when we do the odd game, yeah, you can say it's a one-off. But when this becomes a almost weekly affair, there is something more to it. And the guy who needs to be given credit is the guy who's in charge of the set pieces. And we criticize him when we do badly with the defensive set pieces, but you also have to praise him in equal measure, don't you, offensively speaking?
100%. There's been this conversation recently about whether or not our set piece scoring is sustainable, right? And I think every time we start a match, and it's happened a lot recently, especially over the last month and a half or so, but I think every time you start a match, sorry, let me rephrase. Every time the first goal is a set piece goal, right? I think you see a lot of people come out and say, "Oh, here we go again. No open play goals." And then every open play goal after that, people respond with, "Oh, well, the game state's changed. They have to attack us now. So of course we're going to hit them on the counter, right? It's not sustainable." And I wondered about that too. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm faultless, but um I think we are doing it on a consistent enough basis now where it absolutely is sustainable, right? And I do think that might actually be a a game plan for us, or a way that we try to win matches, which is, we try to get those corners early or those set pieces early. And I think Nicholas Jover, like you said, has us running so smoothly in that regard, and is so innovative and clever with how we set up, with some of the things that we do in our set pieces. We're using screens like in basketball in our set pieces, which I think is a pretty novel idea. Um, and so we're so good at it that we can rely on scoring that first goal from a set piece, and it opens the whole game up after that. And yeah, so I'm with every passing game, I'm a little less concerned about kind of the proportion of set piece goals that we have to our overall goal numbers.
Hmm.
Obviously you don't want it to be everything, but if we are able to take advantage of it on a consistent basis like that, and you know, last time I checked, which was last week, we were leading the league in corner kicks by a pretty fair margin, right? It was, I think I said before, we were like in the 140s, and then the next team after us was in the 120s, and so we're like five teams after that, right? So
Hmm.
I think all that kind of combines for a pretty consistent formula of at least getting that first goal and opening things up after that, because we know how good we are in transition, right? We've seen it also pretty consistently throughout the season, whether it's in the Champions League or the Premier League. If teams have to come at us and attack us, we are very good at either absorbing that pressure, or or pressing them off the ball, or cutting off attacks midway through, and then breaking on them, very, very quickly, very proficiently, and more often than not, very in a very deadly way as well. So yeah, I think Yover is a big, big part of what we're doing this season. He has Gabriel. I think Gabriel's at like 4 or 5 goals this season
Yeah.
already.
He's
He
better
moved.
at scoring than Havertz, honestly.
I think he actually might be level with Havertz. Um, but yeah, and Gabriel now historically is our second highest scoring center back of all time, or defender of all time. I'm sorry.
What? What really?
Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty sure the list
Oh my
goes
God, that's crazy.
Koscielny. Yeah, it's Koscielny, and then Gabriel, and then Vermaelen, and then Gallus,
Oh my
which
God, he's only been here for 5 seasons. That's
yeah,
crazy.
which
Wow.
I need Saliba to pick it up, because I don't want
No,
Gallus on
four
that
seasons,
list.
not five. 4 seasons. He joined in
4 seasons,
2020.
yeah.
That's actually ridiculous. Wow.
No, yeah, it's crazy with and that's the thing. I think it's really smart for Yover to have tapped into that, right? And kind of recognized how um how crazy good at scoring set piece goals Gabriel is, and how much you can rely on him in that regard. And Saliba, we're starting to see it a little bit with him too. I think he has 2 goals on the season, and we have other big players like Tomiyasu and Havertz, and when he's not taking the corner, Rice as well, and Ben White, Kivior if he's involved. We have a lot of very tall, imposingly built players. So I think we're taking advantage of that. I think these guys are smart enough to understand kind of the tactics that we employ in our set pieces, and I think it's working to a really great advantage for us. So you know, I hope it continues, but I'm done for the meantime asking whether or not it's consistent, because I think
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, and also I want to add to what you said. Like, people, it's not just the corners that we're scoring; we are also winning those free kicks and corners in the first place. And as you mentioned, I think that's testament to how good we are playing. And you spoke in the end about Ben White and Jakub Kivior, and I really want to get into their performance on the weekend. I thought, honestly, at the start of the season, fullbacks were a huge concern for me. Of course, Ben White was playing with an injury through the season, so understandable. But Zinchenko was doing some Zinchenko things in many games at the start of the season, and like, calm down. I had to just admit that this guy, he might not be the fullback that we need, but In the last couple of matches, Jakub Kivior has come in and he's done incredibly well. I really like the way Arteta has used Kivior. He's used him a bit more wider, made him invert less, and he's made Ben White essentially do the Zinchenko role from right back. And
Yeah.
Ben White, for me, has been our best player in the last two games. Incredible performances in the last two games. Like, wow, the level that he's playing at. When I look at him, I just think to myself, how can a player be this versatile? Like, you literally started as a center back and you did very well a few seasons ago. Then you moved to right back because the Prince Saliba came in. And at right back, you've picked up the role, you're overlapping, you're inverting when you have to, and you're playing with injury over many months when most players would have just taken the easy way out and said, no, I'm injured. Like, what a player Ben White is. And Sham, I
Absolutely.
want to get your thoughts on Ben White, especially, and just how impressive have our fullbacks been in the last two games because we look so solid. Like, Kivior was actually really good. And how encouraging is it for you that the one glaring area of weakness for Arsenal at the start of the season could now be potentially a source of our strength?
Yeah, I love Ben White, man. Honestly, he's it's weird because I grew up being a sucker for good attackers, and now some of my favorite Arsenal players currently are defenders, and Ben White is one of them. Um, you know, I posed a question on Twitter a couple days ago, basically asking how many world class players do you think Arsenal have? Right. And there were the usual suspects in there. Saka, obviously, Saliba, Odegaard. Some people even said Gabriel, which I agree with. Declan Rice, of course. But one
Jorginho.
player, yeah, I mean, I think Jorginho at one point in time was world class. I think he might have fallen
Yeah.
out. Just time's caught up with him in that regard. But I still think he's a great player. But there was one guy who didn't make a lot of people's lists who I think absolutely deserves to right now, and that's Ben White. I think Ben White is a world class player. Um, this is a guy who he can play center back, like you said. He can play right back. When he was at Leeds, he played defensive midfield as well a few times. And he had that quote a while back where he was basically saying, "What to play right back under Arteta, you have to be a right back, you have to be a center back, you have to be a number 10, you have to be a winger, right? You have to be all these things." And so, I think because he has like this Love Island vibe about him, a lot of people kind of write him off. But I think he's an immensely intelligent player, and he's kind of got everything you want. Really, he's a hell of an athlete, right? And I think he is a very technically able player, and I think he's also intelligent enough to understand, some of the higher level tactics that Arteta is asking him to execute. And so, you know, it's something that I found myself wondering a lot when, Zinchenko wasn't available. Why weren't we inverting Ben White? Right? This is a guy who, in seasons past when we've inevitably lost Thomas Party for a chunk of time, White was one of the first people that we kind of turned to and wondered, could we play him at defensive midfield and then just play someone else at right back? So, I was always kind of wondering when Zinchenko wasn't available, why don't we just tuck Rice in next to Party or sorry, not Rice. Why don't we just tuck White in next to Party or next to Rice and make him play a role that he's probably very comfortable in. So I'm glad that we did that this time because I think Kivior is a really interesting player and I think he's a really gifted one as well. I can't really get over. I know a lot of people don't really rate him these days, but I can't get over kind of this um, collective sigh of annoyance that a lot of people who watch Italian football had when Kivior left to go to Arsenal. Um, yeah, so I just think, we asked him to do something that maybe he's not particularly capable of when we had him do the whole inverting job that we asked Zinchenko. But putting him out wide, I think he proved really effective at that. And that started with the Liverpool match where he had to come in the second half for Zinchenko. And, he was up against the likes of Jota, and I think Gakpo came out there every once in a while, and obviously Trent Alexander-Arnold would make his way up that flank as well, and he did a really good job of suppressing a lot of the threat from their right side. So I think he's still got those defensive chops, and I think we just played more to his strengths at West Ham, which really served us well. So I think it was obviously smart from Arteta, and it was nice to see Kivior put in a more comfortable performance. But Ben White, man, just I think he's low key one of our most important players. And in addition to everything else I've already said about him, the guy has played through injury for us on a pretty consistent basis. He's a warrior. I still remember when we went to Newcastle, and yeah, we got pammed, but he was playing basically with one hamstring at St. James's Park a couple of seasons ago. And this, I think, like basically during the holiday stretch, people were kind of starting to talk down on him a little bit because he was putting in these, 6.5 out of 10 performances because it looked like he was playing injured again, because there was no one else behind him to come in. So I think that's a really elite level of dedication, but also leadership. And yeah, I just think he's a terrific player. I have all the time in the world for Ben White. Phenomenal, phenomenal player.
Not bad for someone who doesn't watch football in his free time, is he? Like,
I will
it's
I will never understand like the level of outrage people had for that comment.
no, but it actually, if you think about it, it makes so much sense because he prefers to put all his energy when he's on the pitch. When he's off the pitch, he prefers to, just live his own life. And then, that helps him, I think, just to come because on the pitch, he turns into a warrior. You've seen his shithousery as well. I absolutely love the guy. And yeah, when I look at him, I just see like a Premier League medal on him. Like, how can a player that good cannot be without winning a Premier League at some point in his career? And
Mhm.
shame on Gareth Southgate, by the way, for not using Trent and Ben White for England. Like, how you could not use these two guys in your team is beyond me. So yeah, screw
It's
Southgate.
it's it's really, I feel really sad for England fans, right? Because I can count on more fingers than I have the number of players who should be getting into that England squad who absolutely will not, or who will stay on the bench the whole time because Southgate has his favorites, doesn't recognize talent, and just wants to continue doing what he's comfortable with. And Ben White absolutely is one of those players where he just wants to go to some guy who he's mates with, and play them at right back or play them at center back, whoever. So yeah, it's a loss for England, but not for us, fortunately. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I want to also like ask you a question about Ben White's best friend, Leandro Trossard. Both of them, obviously, I think they knew each other at Brighton briefly. They did, yeah.
a little
And
bit.
I think him and Trossard, right from the time Trossard entered, they've struck up a friendship at Arsenal. You always see them together in the photos and messing about with each other after the games are over. And I wanted to speak to you about Trossard's performance because the way he played. First of all, shout out to No New Thing, by the way. He was actually spot on with his comment on Trossard when everyone mocked him, saying, how can you say Trossard's playing down the middle after Kai Havertz was up front? He was actually spot on. So, firstly, fair play to him for actually predicting that Trossard is going to be really good and effective in this type of game for Arsenal. Um, I thought Trossard was honestly exceptional. Like, I thought he was the guy that was the glue. And we've seen this 9 out of 10 times when Trossard is down the middle, Arsenal play really well. We've seen this last season when we won 7 games in a row. It was Trossard who was down the middle in those games, not Gabriel Jesus. It was Leandro Trossard. Somehow he seems to bring those around him, and make them, really get involved in the game and bring out the best out of them. So my question to you on Trossard is what makes him so special? Because in my view, it's his simplicity. He doesn't try too many things. He just keeps it simple. Gets the chance. He can shoot. He's not an explosive dribbler, but he can still, make room for himself to get the shot away. So I want to ask you what make this Trossard performance so special? And is he the guy are you playing him in the middle in the coming games, or would you go back to Havertz? How do you see that evolving?
Yeah. I think the thing about Havertz, or sorry, not Havertz, about Trossard is that things become very fluid with him in there, or at least that's what I noticed against West Ham, right? Where he was he played obviously primarily centrally, but he was switching and swapping places with Havertz a lot, right? And they're kind of playing in a way where it was very relative to where the other was, right? So if Trossard went up top to like the top of the diamond or something, or the edge of the penalty area, Havertz would drop deep to pick up the ball. And a lot of the time, you saw the inverse. Sometimes Trossard would drop deep to get more involved in build up, and Havertz would make his way up to the center forward position. Obviously, that didn't happen as often as the first thing, but I think they were very in sync and really understood what the other was doing and where they're supposed to be in relation to them. But also, I think Trossard's ability to come out to the wings and play there as well made him very effective. That helped get Martinelli central a little bit. And I think the main things about Trossard are, one, when we talk about technical ability, I think Trossard is a guy who very obviously has it. This is a guy who knows how to take care of the ball, and he's really good with it in tight spaces. But also, in addition to that, I think he has pretty underrated ball striking. Right, the guy is a really good finisher. We've seen him get into, you know, pretty good finishing opportunities and put them away. I think more consistently than most players on the team, and we saw that again against West Ham. Right. Um, so I think it's that, but I also just think he's a really intelligent player, and he's I think 28, nearing 29 at this point in time, so he's about in his prime, and he's been there, done that in a lot of situations, right? He's a Belgian international. He played for Brighton under multiple, I would say very tactically astute coaches in Graham Potter and Roberto De Zerbi. So, and now, of course, obviously, he's under Arteta. So, I think this is a guy who, really understands the game and is very intelligent about what he does with the ball and how he interacts with his teammates. So, those are kind of two things that I would say outside of Jesus, the other alternatives do not have both of them, right? I think Havertz is a guy who Um, I think Havertz is a very intelligent player, right? And I think he knows how to use his body. I think he knows how to do a lot of the out of possession stuff very well. But I don't think he's particularly great on the ball. His finishing certainly could use a lot of work. And then in Eddie and Kedia, I'm not sure if he has either. To be quite honest, very hardworking player, obviously. A very athletic player, but that intelligence and that ability to take care of the ball, it's a little lacking. So it makes a lot of sense as to why we went with Trossard in that area of the pitch and why we started him center forward. As to whether I would do that again, um, yeah, probably. Honestly, I mean, I think Havertz it might be our big game center forward, right? When we're up against those really um, cumbersome and kind of elite level center backs on opposing teams, guys like Van Dijk with Liverpool and Diaz and Stones and Ake over at City. I think in those situations you do want to play Havertz because that's a guy who understands how to use his physique and his body to at least make them uncomfortable. But I like Trossard a lot against low block teams like you see with West Ham, like we're probably going to see with Burnley, um, and yeah, I just think that's a guy who helps us more open spaces up with the low block. So yeah, I think I probably would start Trossard again at Burnley if Gabriel Jesus isn't available. But how about you?
Yeah, I would also do similar. Maybe not against the olden Burnley sides who used to be that before, but I think this Burnley team is more hipstery. They play good football and they also concede some shit goals. And also, I have to say they're the worst set piece defensive team in the league, and we're the best set piece offensive team in the league. So
Ooh.
yeah, it's going to be interesting one. I think also maybe having, I don't know, that extra presence up front might also give us something, but I don't think it makes a huge difference, to be honest. Actually, in the context of set pieces, you're anyway going to have your big players in the box, so I think we will be good. But it's one to watch out for. And Arsenal have been in phenomenal set piece scoring form. Burnley have been in very bad defending form,
Yeah.
and Arsenal do win a lot of corner kicks. And just putting 1+1, maybe we will score a set piece goal, and we will come back to this clip after we score. But if we don't score, just forget that this I even said what I said.
Also, I think Burnley are a team that are more likely to try to play you, right? Because I think that's kind of Vincent Company's
Philosophy.
mentality. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. He's, definitely a Guardiola disciple, right? And that's the kind of guy who tries to dominate the match the way that, Pep or Arteta would try as well. Obviously, he's not going to be successful at that, but we'll see whether that means he dies trying or he resorts to just employing a low block and hoping they can ride it out. Um, so we've gone over White's performance and Trossard's performance. I want to ask you about Martin Odegaard, right? Because I think he was terrific against West Ham. The guy had over 100 passes made, really pulled the strings for us. So, I wanted to ask you, what were your takeaways from the West Ham performance and just how crucial has he been to maybe our increase in efficacy going forward and on the offensive side?
I think Martin Odegaard is probably the criticized, most unfairly criticized player, I would say, at Arsenal. People say he doesn't turn up in big games. Who turned up for Arsenal last season when we went on those run of games losing and we went away to St. James's Park? Who turned up for Arsenal the very next game when we were playing Chelsea at the Emirates and we were not on a good run? Who turned up for Arsenal in the game against Wolves last year when we had to win to stay on top of the league? This was in December, just before the World Cup, or November. Martin Odegaard is a clutch player, to be honest, and he has this perception of being someone that doesn't affect big matches. But that's changing against Liverpool as well last week. Look at the role he's played in our opener. Last season against Liverpool as well, he played a crucial role in our opening goal. He has like contributions against United as well. He scored a couple of goals against United already in his career. He has assists against Liverpool, goals versus Chelsea, goal at Newcastle. He's done very well in the North London derby. He has a goal away at Spurs Stadium to make it 2-0. That bullet strike he did last season. So he's just the most misunderstood and most criticized player, and I really don't know why. I just think people don't like him because he might not be the most expressive guy. When you look at him, he's not like passion and desire. Brexit means Brexit. He's not that type of a player. He's more of a, yeah, we just go with the flow type of a guy. So I think people need to look at Odegaard, appreciate his intelligence. This season, at the start of the season, he was playing like a second striker almost and just shooting at every given opportunity. But I think now he's playing a more deeper role, but also transitioning into the 10. I think this role, I think, brings out the best in him, and he's playing more like an 8, and I really like to see that. And I thought, again, he was exceptional because this is a guy, you give him space, he will kill you. And West Ham gave him a lot of space. And if you remember, a few years ago, when he had signed that January, we went away to West Ham in a game we were 3-0 down, and we clawed it back and were 3-3. And despite Lacazette scoring a brace, and I think that was an own goal, it was Martin Odegaard who got man of the match. Like, the level of playmaking from him that day was out of this world. And 3 years later, he has repeated that against the same team. But this time, Arsenal are so much better. Our defense is better. We didn't concede 3 goals. Going forward, we're better. We scored 6. And I think he was the heartbeat of it. And yeah, we will speak, of course, when we get to the 16-year-old who made his second Premier League appearance. But my favorite pass of Odegaard was that pass he gives to Ethan, he's like, "Take it, my friend. The stage is yours." And I loved it. I loved it. What a player. What a guy to have in the team. And one of the best signings Arsenal have made in recent times. 35 million. Are you kidding me? Wow. Unreal.
Yeah, I think so. I pulled up his goal contributions on the season. He's at 7 goals and 4 assists on the season so far,
He's
right?
been robbed.
Obviously,
He's been absolutely robbed this season by players
does
around him.
I if I remember correctly, here we go. Martin Odegaard is the first player in Europe's top 5 leagues to reach 50 open play chances created. He's top in the Premier League for passes into the penalty area and through balls. Um, yeah, I mean, like the if we were properly doing justice for a lot of the creative play that Odegaard has, right? Then we would be talking about him and De Bruyne together, right? I keep on seeing these stat muse tweets, which is like, Bruno this season like 5 assists, Odegaard this season 5 assists, Kevin De Bruyne like in the last 4 games 7 assists, something like that, right? Because one of those guys has Erling Holland to pass the ball to, and another one of those guys has Gabriel Jesus and Kai Havertz to pass the ball to, right?
And Eddie as well. Don't let Eddie get away from this.
Yeah, that dude Kenny as well.
We're leaving
Um,
Trossard out of this. Trossard, you're innocent. You can
I
talk
you
about
know I just think he's a phenomenal playmaker. And on top of that, right? Because there's so many players out there who they're pretty little pocket passers and that's it. But on top of that, Odegaard presses like a madman, which I think is a really, really underrated part of his game. This guy orchestrates the press for us, and I think the press has been a very productive method of chance creation for us on the season, and he's a big part of that. So yeah, I think he's been absolutely crucial to how he played this season. But another thing I do want to highlight from this game is like you said, kind of um, his sort of introduction for Ethan Winery, his encouragement, his in-game encouragement of Ethan Winery, right? That little pass where he just kind of rolls it forward with the bottom of his foot and says, "No, this is all you. Go ahead.
the
Show him what
stage
you
is
got."
yours.
Yeah, exactly. Stage is yours. And the number of times he gave the ball to Winery and kind of the encouragement they showed him. I've said it time and time again. Odegaard isn't this um, you know, kind of grab you by the scruff of the neck and yell at you when you're not playing well kind of guy. That might be Rice, that might be Gabriel. It's not Odegaard. Odegaard leads by example, right? And he's a guy who just very quietly instills this culture of support at the club. There's him taking the camera from Stuart McFarlane and taking a photo of him in front of everybody and pissing off Jamie Carragher. And then there's just kind of him being almost a security blanket for Ethan Winery and just very quietly encouraging him throughout the game. So I I thought that was really impressive from him from a leadership aspect. But that does, of course, take us to Mikel Arteta playing, the Utes, as one says. And I did wonder whether or not that was going to happen. When we were about 4 or 5 nil up, you obviously would look at the bench on that day, and we didn't really have anybody. Right? It was Cedric and El Nani and Bandera and Kedia, and that was about it. And a half fit Jorginho, and then there was also Ethan Winery, right? And so I figured this is probably going to be as good a time as any for Arteta to put him out there, especially considering that we went 6-0 up. So he did, and he put Ethan Winery on there, and I just kind of want to get your thoughts as to your impression of that little bit of time that we had Winery on the pitch. How did he look to you?
Arteta hates youth players, though, doesn't he, Sham? That's what people were trying to tell in this
Despises
game.
them.
He absolutely hates them, which is why he gave Saka, Emil Smith Rowe, Eddie Nketiah, Gabriel Martinelli, took them all when they were 18, 19, and gave them and made them really relevant players. Of course, they've also done well, fair play to them, but it was Mikel Arteta that really took them and put them on the map. Like, I don't care who gave them their debut. Arteta was the guy that played these guys in a regular way. Okay. And no one can take that away from him. If you're good enough,
You're old enough.
3 years that how many youth players in the last 3 years that Mikel has like so-called ignored have gone on to other clubs and proven him wrong. Not even one player. And Ethan, I thought he was to get your question. I thought Ethan had a really encouraging performance. You can say it, we were 6-0 up. You can say all of that, but he showed great personality in a Premier League match against players who are twice his age, or not twice his age, but yeah, like twice his size physically also. To actually like play the way he did was very encouraging, and I think this kid is special, man. He's a really special player. And I think there are some players who are so good you don't even want to send them out on loan because you just know, like, wow, this guy's he is him. And I can see him coming into the team more next season, and certainly when he turns 18. Like, like how Jude Bellingham was when he was 18. I see Ethan as that level of talent. Like, wow. Like, how can you be this composed on the ball in such a congested midfield at 16 years of age? Like, it's actually crazy. But is he 16 or 17? He's 16, right?
I think he turns 17 soon, but he's currently 16.
Ah, you're perfectly right. Yeah, he turned 17 in March. But 2007 he was born. Bro, I feel so old. My God, 2007 he's born. Oh my God, that's actually crazy. Wow. This is when I was playing like FIFA '08, So it's like, wow, isn't that he was
Yeah.
born then. So it just goes to
It
show you, and he's playing in the Premier League. Wow, that's actually crazy to even think
it
about it.
hits you like a ton of bricks when you realize like when some of these guys were born.
Seriously, man. Like, how do you play? Like, I've never seen it, okay? Like, I'll be honest, in my life, I've not seen a 16-year-old play like this in the Premier League, like even in an odd sub appearance. Like, he looks like he belongs at the level. He's unfazed. And Sham, I don't know if you remember this. Last year after the World Cup, there was a few practice matches. I think we played Juventus and Milan. I remember Sandro Tonali playing rugby against us. I think we played a couple of these Italian sides. And
Yeah.
if you remember, Ethan Nwaneri and this other guy, Miles Lewis Kelly, they come on and they just look at home while they're on the pitch. They look like they belong.
Yeah.
And for me, that it was clear from day one. And it's just a matter of Nwaneri now continuing his development, doing as he is. He seems to have a really good attitude as well. He's spoken of really highly in terms of his application. So yeah, I think this is a sure shot success, and I think Arsenal have not just the talent who's going to come. I think a potential world class player. Like, wow, like it's crazy. Like, this guy's playing his first under 21 season, and he's killing it. Like at 16, and he's the best, one of the best players already, and he's playing with like others who are like over 4 5 years. That once in every like 10 years you'll have one player who's just a cut above everyone, and Ethan
Yeah.
strikes me as that type of player. And yeah, I'm so excited to watch him play. Like, so nice to see a youth player play. Despite the coach who hates youth players, this guy has come up and shown what he can do. So fair play to the kid. But what did you
You
make
know,
of it,
it
Sham?
well, it's like Arteta says, if you have ever been 16 years old, then, you can go to hell. That's what he said word for word. If you have ever been 16 years old, then I don't want you in this team. Um I was pretty impressed by him, honestly. And I the way that he, would get the ball. I liked how he would like kind of drift into these pockets and collect the ball there. And the way that he was running at some of the West Ham defenders. And I think he played this really nice pass that should have put Kai Havertz into the penalty area, but Havertz has kind of this bad habit of just stopping the ball and kind of like letting
He laid it off for
whipping it over.
Elneny, who sent it
Yeah.
into the orbit. Your favorite player, but yeah.
Oh man. I hope El Nani doesn't read my tweets because there's a non-zero chance I'll run into that man in Egypt one day. But yeah, I was just really impressed by him. And he, like you said, he looked very unfazed. He looked very comfortable at the level, which you're not going to see from very many 16-year-olds, right? And so there was a comment that Arteta made after the match where he basically said that some of the players were telling him put Ethan in, right? And I think that's really significant because players know when other players around them are to be trusted, have an ability that they can rely on, right? You see it all the time. If there's a player on a team that his teammates don't rate, then they're not going to give him the ball, right? And so, that was kind of something I witnessed early on in the season to kind of reassure myself about Havertz, where they kept giving him the ball, and that's something that you saw with Wineri pretty quickly. He came on the pitch, and everyone was trying to get the ball to him, which I think showed a comfort and and a security when it came to him, right? And this might be, I mean, this probably is our best team since the Invincibles, right? And these guys thought this teenager was good enough to keep giving the ball to, right? I think that means something. So, it's a big reason why I get so annoyed when people are talking about oh, you got to throw the kids in at every opportunity. Like, why aren't we giving them minutes against Liverpool? Why aren't we asking them to win away at PSV? Blah blah blah. It's because talents like Wineri, talents like Lewis Skelly, right? You really have to take care of those guys if you want them to reach their full potential. You can't be throwing them into situations where they could take a massive hit to their confidence, right? And I think so many people dismiss that as a part of the process, right? You constantly have to make sure that these guys are comfortable and that, they believe in themselves. So if you're throwing them to the deep end in a European match against PSV, or if you're throwing them in to try to, salvage a draw against Liverpool or something, right? That's not going to be good for their development. So it's really nice to see us being careful with Wineri and playing him in these more low stakes situations where he can just get comfortable with the level. And I think we've been generally doing a really good job with him because like we've been having him train with the first team pretty regularly. He's made a lot of our match day squads. Yes, he's only come off the bench twice, but he's made a lot of match day squads. And so I think when you do that, you kind of already get them accustomed to the demands of playing with the first team, of playing at that level, right? So, I don't really care what a lot of people behind their computer screens feel. I'm sure Wineri right now feels like he is, he is earning his way up to the higher levels of the club, and he feels like he's being rewarded for the hard work he's putting in. So when he gets those 15 minutes here, those 20 minutes there, those are going to be sparks for him to continue working hard. So um, I was really happy to see him play. Obviously, you always want to see a new youth player come through. I was really impressed by what he did, and yeah, hopefully we just continue being careful with him and just bringing him along at the right pace.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head with your thoughts on Waneri. I think we have to be patient, but we can also be very excited with the talent that Arsenal are going to produce, have already produced, and we're going to see it come to fruition in the coming years. And you were speaking about the players on the bench saying, "Bring on Ethan." There was also a player on the bench who said, "Bring on Cedric," and that was Cedric himself. So that's the joke that's been doing the rounds. That he's like someone said, "Bring on Cedric," and Mitchell looked back at who it was and brought him on. Um, but yeah, it was. I think everyone, everyone got their time to shine. Even El Neni was chilling in the midfield. Even when we were 6-0 up, this guy was still passing it sideways. So yeah, it was nice to see the old bandit era players also get a look in. I miss Rob Holding on days like this, man. He should have come on and scored and made it 7. But anyway, it is what it is. we move.
Yeah, yeah, man. You should have seen my dad during the African Nations Cup when we'd need to get a goal, and El Neni was just passing it side to side. My
Oh
dad's like,
man.
pass it forward, pass it forward.
It's like how can a player be this oriented to one side? It's almost like his whole body just wants to go zick zick. It's like make no sense.
Some some players just are not massive risk takers. Um, I do I do want to bring attention to one more player before we get out of here, which is David Raya. And you actually tweeted yesterday to say it quietly, but David Raya has been very good lately. I'm going to say it very loudly, but I'm going to walk away from the mic so that I don't blow out someone's eardrums when they listen to this. So just 1 second. David Raya has been great lately.
Yeah, I
But
just
yeah,
didn't want to offend the passion merchants, you know. That's the reason why I was like a bit calm. Maybe Ramsdale's father might come on and reply on my tweet and send me abuse. I was a bit scared. So I just
man. I mean, look. I mean, that's the toughest thing about the Raya situation, right? Which is Ramsdale obviously is a casualty of this, and
Mhm.
we all love the personality. We all think he's a great goalkeeper, but Raya's just been, I think, that little bit better, and it's starting to show. So I'll hand it off to you first. Why do you think Raya's been so great lately?
Because he's not had a lot of saves to make. No, joking. I think he's been more very composed with ball at feet. You know, I think it's symptomatic of how the team has been playing. The team has been more composed since the Dubai break. I just think they needed some good vitamin D, and now they're back. They're back in it, back in the action. And I think it's a consequence of just the team playing better. The goalkeepers also more calmer. You know, when a team does not play well, even the goalkeeper panics, and even the best goalkeepers panic. Like Allison has made quite a few mistakes for Liverpool. You know, people don't want to
Yeah.
speak about it, but he has made some mistakes. And it usually happens when Liverpool are like getting ripped apart and like the team is like, oh, what is happening? He's also saved them countless occasions, which is what makes him a world class player. But even against Arsenal, like that long ball, that sort of a misjudgment is like, yeah, it was just pressure, you know. Sometimes that can happen. And I think Raya
Eder,
in the recent matches,
Ederson too, by the way, just yesterday against Copenhagen, handed the ball away to them, and they scored a goal off of it. So it happens to
yeah,
everybody.
it happens to everyone. I just think in David Raya's case, the guy he replaced was like a fan favorite, you know. So it's a bit harder to replace him because Ramsdale, like I've been to quite a few matches at the Emirates, and Ramsdale has a real connection with the crowd. And Raya is not as expressive. He's more calm, composed, which I think is what Arteta wants Arsenal to be, this calm and composed team that just plays boring football and bores their fans out, but wins by keeping the ball, by controlling key areas. And Raya, I think, yeah, he's here for a reason. He's here because he's a better ball playing keeper than Ramsdale. People can, of course, speak about prioritization, like, oh, why did we have to commit 30 million? But sometimes when you see an opportunity, you have to do it because a keeper like this, of this quality, if you buy him in this summer, he's going to go for 60 million, you know? So I think Arsenal really pulled off a bargain for Raya. We can again question, did we have to sign him at that time? Fair enough, but you know, he didn't choose to sign himself. He's here. Let's judge him by how he is as a player, and he's been really good recently. And his distribution is out of this world. I also think we're giving him that target in Havertz to pick out. He's doing it really well, and people nitpick on every little thing. People act like Ramsdale has never made a mistake in his career. Like last season, Ramsdale had a good season, but he made countless mistakes. And I try to tell people, like, yeah, I'm not super comfortable with Ramsdale's goalkeeping at all times. And people's replies are, yeah, but it's not the most pressing need. Fair enough, it's not the most pressing need, but it was still not perfect. And Mikel has obviously seen how he can make some marginal improvements. And I think David Raya, you can't quantify his impact because, you know, he helps us build up. So it's not something you can easily quantify and say this is what he did. But if you just look at like the games, you know that he's the guy who's starting the attacks from the back, relieving the pressure. And yeah, fantastic signing, and he's only going to get better. So I think Mikel has also held a win on this one. But do you see it that way too, Sham?
Yeah, I this might be the nerdiest thing I've ever said on this pod, but I think Raya, the signing of Raya and the cost that came along with that kind of reminds me of what happens in a lot of video games, right? Where if it's like some adventure game and you have like a storage limit, right? There's always somewhere you can go to increase the storage limit that your character has, right? And you'll pay, like 10 units to increase it a little bit, and then 20 units to increase it a little bit, and then 30 units, right? And the price keeps going up and up and up until, you're paying 10,000 units to get like one extra space in your inventory, right? And what I'm getting at here is that when you are at this kind of, these highest levels of the game, right? And you need to get that little bit better, right? And kind of, take advantage of how fine the margins are. It's often really expensive, right? That's that's why, Aston Villa, right, probably isn't going to turn into a team that competes for the title on a regular basis, right? Because to go from where they are right now to where we are, to where City are, to where, Liverpool are, right? That's another 200 million, right?
Yeah.
So when you are at these really fine margins to even get a 0.5% better, it's really expensive, right? Because you are getting the best of the best at that point. And so that's kind of how I think about Raya, right? Yes, we went and spent 30 million pounds on a goalkeeper. Yeah, he's not exactly Gianluigi Buffon when it comes to saving, but I don't think we signed Raya to be a shot stopper. Obviously, I think his shot stopping numbers last season were better than Ramsdale's, but we signed Raya because of his in possession qualities, right? Namely, how he's able to basically function as the left center back in build up, right? And give us that numerical advantage, but also the way he's able to start counterattacks so quickly, right? And you've talked about this on numerous occasions. His distro, right, is really, really good. And, we've seen it on a couple occasions now recently where he has very quickly and cleverly thrown the ball out to somebody to start a counterattack. And if memory serves correctly, at least once it resulted in a goal. So, I think he's become a very important player for us. And, obviously, it's still the case that he hasn't faced many shots per game before conceding. Obviously, it's the case that he's made a couple mistakes here and there. But I'll ask you a question, Sash. Which player in the Premier League do you think has the most clean sheets right now?
Um, is this a trick question?
Somewhat, yeah.
Is it the Spurs keeper?
No,
Is it is it is it Edison?
no.
Is it David Raya?
It's
No.
William
Okay.
Saliba.
Goalkeeper.
No, I said which player?
Player. Okay. I thought it was goalkeeper. Okay. Okay.
William Saliba, according to the Premier League website, has the most clean sheets in the Premier League. And the point I'm getting at here is we already have the defense in front of Raya to make sure that he doesn't have to face those shots, right? And, like you said, he doesn't face that many shots generally. And that's because we have Declan Rice and Gabriel and William Saliba in front of him. And we have Ben White back to fitness. And, Takahiro Tomiyasu eventually is going to return. And Urian Timber is going to be back soon, right? So you have that defensive line in front of him to make his job as easy as possible defensively and in terms of keeping the ball out of the net. But Raya is there to give us that little bit extra in terms of how we distribute, in terms of how we get the ball forward. So in that regard, I think 30 million is a pretty small price to pay. Like you said, obviously it comes at the cost likely of someone who's become a bit of a cult hero at the club. But for me personally, even though it might mean I have to change my Twitter handle at some point in the near future, me personally, I'm willing to live with that. because it means that we can probably turn a profit on Ramsdale, and because we've come out with a goalkeeper who, again, just gives us that little bit extra in terms of how we play. And when when the margins are this fine at the top of the game, that little bit extra can be all the difference. So I've been really really happy with how things have gone with Raya lately.
Yeah, no, I think that you make a good point. Arsenal obviously have solid foundations, and I think it benefits the keeper as well. But I do think also because of our offensive issues, we were not scoring goals, we were not clinical, and we were conceding shit goals that we were committing suicide almost the way we were playing. And I think, yeah, that such an environment does not help the keeper. And it was very annoying for me as well. Like, Arsenal not being decisive suddenly turned into a Raya versus Ramsdale debate by the media are waiting for Raya to make a mistake, waiting for Arsenal to lose so they can open this can of worms again. But
Yeah,
I think when we win, people are able to praise Raya and people are able to more objectively see that hey, David Raya is actually more part of the solution than he is the problem. And yeah, long may this continue. I think he's put in a few good games. People are complaining that he's not made big saves, but it's also partly because Arsenal are not conceding that many chances. And as evidenced by that clean sheet stat you mentioned. So yeah,
yeah,
I think there's some context here. I don't want David Raya to make any big saves because I don't want Arsenal to concede big chances. That should be the conclusion from this, I think. But yeah, I mean, let's hope that he continues this run and good fair play to him and for Mikel for turning the situation around. But I mean, I don't think there was too much to turn around. It was more like Arsenal playing better and it just improved everyone.
yep, yep, for sure. The whole Raya not making big saves thing, I just think that's a really positive reflection on how we've been doing as a team. So
Yeah.
I will gladly take it. Any closing thoughts? Anything about Burnley
Yep.
or yeah?
Yeah, so I want to ask you like your score prediction that which we do now.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um, what I think against Liverpool, I got it right, 3-1. In fact, we should start maintaining like a chart to see who gets more predictions right until the end of the season.
we
So
should actually.
so far it's 1-0 to Sash. Uh, but uh, yeah, like what's your score prediction against Burnley? How do you see this one ending?
I think I'm going to go 4-1 for us. Yeah. I think we'll absolutely smoke them, but I think just I think Burnley are going to have like one attack where just everything kind of goes right for them. Maybe that Oliosho guy puts the ball in the back of the net or something like that. Or is it Koliosho? Oliosho? I don't know. They have
Mhm.
some guy who plays left wing for them who is
Yeah,
a
he was
little
very
annoying.
tricky. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I think he'll. I think here, someone else is just going to put the ball in the back of the net in very annoying fashion. But I think outside of that, they're not going to have a sniff against us. But how about you?
Yep. So you're saying 4-1 to Arsenal?
Yeah.
Hmm. I think it's going to be um, 3-1 to Arsenal, I think.
Okay.
3-1 got me 1 point already, so I'm going to go with the same score line.
I'm writing this
And
down.
yeah, go for it. Anyway, we have video evidence in case there is a debate.
All right. 3-1 win for you. 4-1 win for me. All right. Yeah. We will see what happens. And I think this is probably one of the more straightforward games that we have. In the the coming games ahead of us. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Feeling pretty confident about it. And after that is a return to the Champions League knockout stages. So um, we will be back after hopefully a 4-1 win against Burnley or a 3-1 win if you want Sash to win this bet. Um, we should come up with something that the loser has to do at the end of the season. We'll talk offline, but so we will be back to you after hopefully a very, very convincing win away at Burnley. And we actually have a very exciting guest lined up for next week. I unfortunately will not be here when we record that. I will be on my bachelor weekend. So if you are in the Phoenix or Scottsdale area, feel free to say hi. But yeah, until then, be a gooner, don't be a goon, and we will talk to you soon. So until then, take care. Bye.